Hello again, Gary Stearman. Time for another update from Prophecy in the News. This one scheduled for release on the 20th of June. Once again, Bill Salus is back with us. And Bill, we promised on yesterday's update that you would continue talking about your new book, Nuclear Showdown in Iran, and the subtitle, Revealing the Ancient Prophecy of Elam. Now, let's go ahead and talk about this prophecy of Elam. You've devoted an entire book to it. It's a few verses. You've gone into incredible depth and detail to talk about Elam. Let's continue from where we left off yesterday and talk about the timing of this prophecy. Everybody's looking at the Middle East and trying to figure out what's going on. Elam, what could be the timing of this prophecy relative to other Bible prophecy?
Well, I think personally, and I might have mentioned this in the program yesterday, I think it's an imminent event. It might even be a prophecy that precedes Psalm 83, which, as you know, I've been advocating we should be on the lookout for.
Right.
That final Arab-Israeli concluding war. There were several prerequisites that we were given in details in Jeremiah 49:34 through 39 concerning Elam. One is the Lord has to be fiercely angered to bring about the judgment, the disaster that's about to happen. Two is Elam has to have enemies, plural. Three is it has to be the latter days, because it talks about that in the last verse, in the latter days. And four is Iran has to be in a position where when the disaster occurs, it could ultimately force many exiles into a worldwide dispersion. In other words, perhaps we're speaking about a humanitarian crisis. And right now, Iran, the Lord is angry with Iran because they are, one, they're wanting to wipe Israel off the map, and he has big plans for Israel in the end times. They're going to have a nuclear weapon if they go unchecked. Estimates are if they spin their 19,000 centrifuges full speed, which presently they're not, supposedly only spinning about 10,000, but 19,000 centrifuges at full speed could produce a nuclear weapon in 6 weeks. An Israeli leader came out recently and said by 2024, Iran could have 50 to 100 nuclear weapons. Now, Gary, one nuclear weapon can take out Tel Aviv.
Right.
That's all it takes to take out a major city. That's one of the enemies, one of the reasons the Lord would be angry with Iran. Two is their insistent worship of the mullahs on their population of Allah, a pagan god. Now, God is the only God. He tells that to us in Isaiah 46. He's a jealous God for all the right reasons in Nahum chapter 1, verse 2. And about 60 to 70% of the Iranian population right now were not even born when the mullahs came into place in the Islamic regime takeover in 1979. A lot of that population is under 30 years old. That was 35 years ago. They are insisting on their worship of Islam over there, a pagan god. And three, and probably the strike three on this, is the persecution of the Christian church over there. Your viewers may not be aware of this, but Iran is the #1 growing evangelical population in the world. And it's growing so exponentially that over a couple years ago, the Ayatollah Khamenei issued a decree to close all home churches, to arrest and persecute all home pastors, Christian pastors, and of course that has spread and blanket persecution of Christians in general. Of course, we've got Saeed Abedini over there, that pastor who's got a wife, Nagma, and their 2 children. Her name's Nagma over here, and he's still imprisoned over there. It is a bad situation, and the Lord is pouring out His Spirit, I believe, in fulfillment of prophecy in Joel 2:29, and on His men servants and maid servants. There are dreams occurring. There are visions occurring. The Lord has rolled up His sleeve and is reconciling people to Jesus Christ in masses over there. When there was estimated that before the Islamic Revolution in 1979, there may have been 500 Christians. Now they think there's a minimum of 1 million. They can't really do a consensus on it. They say maybe 3 million to 5 million Iranians right now are Christians. They're the #1 population evangelically growing over there.
That is so encouraging. And by the way, that brings up a point about Bill's book, Nuclear Showdown. We tend to look at Iran and with dismay. I mean, they call America the great Satan. They call Israel the little Satan. They live for the day when they can wipe out Israel and then America. I mean, they're very open about it. And when we look at Iran, it's just disgusting. And yet this prophecy, and I've had this feeling. Now, I haven't read the book. I will. I promise you. But nuclear showdown in Iran, you look at the cover and you say, well, you know, Iranian nuclear technology, I've been following that for years, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. But then this prophecy of Elam, you look at it, and suddenly you're encouraged again, because you see the hand of God is at work even in a dark, demonic place like Iran or Persia. And the prophecy of Elam has, if you will, a happy ending. It has a resolution, which I love. It's the good part about it.
Yeah, and you know, the stakes with Israel have always been hot and troublesome for them since their existence in 1948. The wars have come against them, the Arabs. And the missiles have gotten, and the weaponry technologies have gotten more advanced and more advanced. But never has it faced the existential threat on a level it does to Iran right now. And I personally believe, and we're going to take your viewers into a backroom conversation you and I had before we came on the set here. I personally believe that the enemy, this is a prophecy that he does not want necessarily revealed on any broad level. It was sort of that little sleeper prophecy there that had been vastly overlooked. You know, basically Ezekiel 38 and 39, that can't be concealed. That is a very descriptive prophecy. Psalm 83 is now out. Millions of people have heard about that. Isaiah 17. But this is that prophecy, probably dealing with Iran's nuclear program, that this Islamic regime could have used to wipe Israel off the map. Writing this book was a wrestling with principalities, Gary. I've written 3 books now. This is my 4th, and it's unlike the other ones. There were principalities coming in this one here, I can tell. It's sort of the chink in the enemy's armor, in my estimation. He does not want people praying for Iranians. He does not want people supporting ministries that are reaching into Iran, like Iran Alive Ministries, satellite TV, bringing people to the Lord, teaching them about these prophecies, and people financially supporting these ministries. This, I think, he wanted to keep under wraps so that he could try to sneak over and wipe out Israel off the map. That's just my own personal subjective feelings about it. I'm very adamant and passionate about revealing this prophecy right now.
Well, for one thing, those of us who have read Bible prophecy understand that Israel's not going to be destroyed by nuclear weapons. It's just very clear. As many nuclear weapons as have been focused against Israel from time to time, I'm sure the Russians 30 years ago had designs on wiping out Israel because they brought their navy down into the Mediterranean and so forth before they were pushed back. But many nations have had designs on Israel. The Bible says, and all the prophets reflect this idea, that Israel will rise and not fall, even though all the forces of Satan are focused upon Israel in the middle of the tribulation. Israel still will not fall. It's going to be the home of the kingdom. And so we don't see nuclear weapons exploding in Israel in Bible prophecy. And yet we see many, many nuclear weapons around the Middle East today. You know, I mean, who knows how many there are. And Iran may already have one. This prophecy says that they're not going to get to use them.
Well, you're correct. And if they have one or if they don't have one, them not becoming a nuclear power to a point where they could actually affect that nuclear usage on Israel, I don't think it's going to be prevented by the P5+1 negotiations with the international community that are going on presently. I don't believe it's going to be a diplomatic situation, because Iran, who many people believe were the inventors of chess, knows how to play a chess game. It could have been India. Some people say Iran. The point is, Iran is very cunning. And they're, in my estimation, if they're not going to have a nuclear program, it's not going to be because they were talked out of one. It's probably going to have to become because they've been struck. And I do believe Israel is prepared to do that because they have a history of doing that. They did that to Iraq in 1980. They did that to Syria in 2007. And with contacts and research I've done and people I know, I believe that it's very feasible that your viewers could wake up as soon as tomorrow morning or any given morning here soon, and they could see a strike on Iran's nuclear programs, and that could be part of what we see in Jeremiah 49 concerning Elam.
Closing, I want to just say that what has come through to me after talking with you is the need for American Christians, or Christians worldwide, to be in prayer for Iran and for the saints of Iran.
I agree with that 100%. That will make a big difference. It's unbelievable the movement toward Christianity that is going on in Iran, in the camps in Syria of the refugees, in China and elsewhere. And we need to be praying for all those places, especially Iran, and supporting ministries that are reaching in there through satellite TV like Iran Alive Ministries. I'll tell you, the enemy does not want that to happen. Again, I think that's why this prophecy was kept under wraps. I mean, if there was any kind of way that could have been done, of course, God reveals prophecy in their due time, and here we are. I think it's the due time.
Well, thanks for being with us today. Always a pleasure to talk with you, and may the Lord bless your work.
Thanks, Gary.
I'm Gary Stearman, as always reminding you, in view of the days in which we live, to keep looking up.